Well, Ellen, do you
Do
think it's partly because if you start to become mindful, there's also the possibility that you'll bring your shortcomings to mind. Like, imagine that you do start a practice of attending. As you attend, you're going to learn things about yourself that are interfering with your ability to openly attend, right? And that can be challenging and off-putting, because you can see, because you're wondering, well, if this is so obvious, why don't people notice it? Why don't people just automatically do it? And I do think that part of it is that when you start to pay careful attention, you find things that need to be fixed, and that calls you. Well, that's one possibility, anyways.
Well, so let me speak to that, because something that's very important to me is the idea that behavior makes sense from the actor's perspective, or else he or she wouldn't do it. And so if one were mindful, they'd be aware of why they're doing what they're doing. And it turns out that every description we have of people, ourselves or others, has an equally potent but oppositely valenced alternative. So you want to diminish me because I'm so gullible, which I am. From my perspective, I'm trusting. You drive me crazy because you're so inconsistent. From your perspective, you're flexible. You can't stand me because I'm so impulsive. That's because I value being spontaneous. So it's interesting. You'll like this as a clinician. Years ago, we did this study where we gave people about 200 of these behavior descriptions. And we said, circle those things about yourself that you want to change, but you have trouble changing. Okay, so for me, it would be gullible, impulsive, for example. Now you turn the sheet of paper over, and in a mixed up order are the positive versions of each of these. And now we ask people, circle those things about yourself you really value. Trusting and spontaneous. And so as long as I value being trusting, I'm going to necessarily be gullible. As long as I value being spontaneous, people on occasion are going to see me as impulsive. And when you realize that behavior makes sense, then we don't want to change ourselves or other people in the same way. You might be tired of me because I'm so whatever. And then when you see the positive version of it, you welcome it. And our relationship flourishes and we become less judgmental. Because before you were talking about what do we do with people in industry who don't do well at whatever the task is. And it occurred to me that everybody doesn't know something. I wrote a little song about this that I sang and taught my grandkids. I'm not going to sing it because I can't carry a tune, although I should, Jordan, because that's what it's about. I do a lot very, very well. So why should I hesitate? So here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Everybody doesn't know something, but everyone knows something else. Everyone can't do something, but everyone can do something else. So my long-term goal is to take the horizontal, where we comfortably sit on top, and the vertical rather, and make it horizontal, where everybody is valued. And so the person who seems not to be able to do whatever it is will be able to do it differently somehow else. It goes back to you have your teaching and you ask your students how much is 1 and 1, and one person in the class says 1. And what we do now is we belittle that person. We teach the students around to have no respect for that person. Where in my world, what we do is say, Johnny, Susie, whatever, how did you come up with that? And then they tell us they added 1 cloud plus 1 cloud, or however they came up with it. And that we learn that much more. When I was lecturing in South Africa many years ago, and I was staying at this fancy hotel, and I was down at the pool resting one afternoon, and I noticed that there was this enormous amount of real estate in the hotel, part of the hotel, that nobody was using. And the only person who knew that was the lowly cabana boy. That, of course, if we assumed that he had something really to offer, we would think to get that information from him and then make more money, which seems to be the goal of most of these entrepreneurs or hotel owners or what have you. So we're brought up thinking there's a single way of doing things. There's a single answer to questions, and all of that fosters our mindlessness. And, sometimes when I'm lecturing, I'll look in the audience to see if there's some guy who seems really big. And I'll say, ask him if he'll come to the stage. So let's assume I'm lucky that day and he's 6'5". Well, I'm 5'3", almost. All right. And so we look ridiculous next to each other. And then I asked him to put his hand up, and his hand is 3 inches bigger than mine. And then I raised the question, should we do anything physically the same way? Should we hold a tennis racket, a baseball bat, a golf club? And the answer is clearly no. And that the more similar you are to the person who wrote the rules, perhaps the better it is for you to follow. But the more important part of that is the more different you are, the more important it is for you to find your own way of doing it. And, and that when people are taught conditionally, you sort of hold the racket like this, or you could hold the racket like this, they're more likely to come up with their own way.